and by then a real relationship had developed. Hogan had been married to his first wife, Nolene, for decades before the two divorced. Kozlowski and Hogan married in May 1990. They lived first in Australia before eventually settling in Los Angeles in the late 1990s, and had one son together, Chance, born in 1998. The couple went on to co-star in the fourth Crocodile Dundee film, Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles, in 2001, a critical and commercial disappointment that effectively closed the book on the franchise. After that fourth film, Kozlowski's screen career quietly ended. She has said in interviews that Hollywood repeatedly offered her a narrow type of role, largely defined by her connection to Hogan's persona, and that she grew frustrated with the lack of range on offer. Rather than continue chasing parts that didn't interest her, she stepped back from acting altogether, shifting her focus toward raising her son and building a quieter life outside the industry spotlight. Her marriage to Hogan ended in 2014, following a filing in 2013 that cited irreconcilable differences after 23 years together. The split was widely described as amicable, and both have since spoken warmly about maintaining a level of mutual respect afterward. Friendly enough, by later reports, that Hogan has remained on good terms with Kozlowski's current partner. What came next is the more unusual part of Kozlowski's story. Drawn to Morocco's culture and pace of life, she met Malay Hafid Baba, a Moroccan tour guide with decades of experience assisting major film productions shot in the country, projects ranging from Gladiator to Inception. In the fall of 2014, the two co-founded Dream My Destiny, a bespoke luxury tour company based in Marrakesh that designs custom, high-end travel experiences and also helps connect Hollywood productions with local crews and locations. Kozlowski and Baba later married in 2017, and the couple has split their time between Los Angeles and Morocco, eventually settling primarily in Marrakesh. Her divorce settlement from Hogan reportedly gave her the financial footing to make that shift, and she has since built a real estate portfolio, including property in California, alongside the tour business. Estimates of her net worth in recent years have put it in the range of several $1 million, though exact figures from divorce settlements and private wealth are difficult to verify precisely and vary between sources. Speaking about the move away from acting, Kozlowski has framed it less as a loss than as a release, noting in a past interview that she spent a long stretch of her life somewhat in Hogan's shadow, given his fame, and that stepping into her own ventures felt like finally being out on her own. It's a sentiment she's returned to in the years since, that trading a recognizable Hollywood career for a hands-on business and a different country gave her something acting hadn't, a sense of ownership over her own daily life. It's tempting, looking back at Kozlowski's arc, to draw a single tidy lesson from it. The girl next door turned star turned quiet reinvention narrative that entertainment retrospectives tend to favor. The reality is a little more ordinary and in some ways more instructive. A young actress landed an unusually demanding role on a genuinely difficult, remote production. The professionalism she showed that became a defining part of how colleagues remembered her. The on-set relationship she built became a 23-year marriage. And when Hollywood's opportunities narrowed and that marriage ended, she used the resources and freedom that gave her to build something new somewhere else entirely. None of that requires exaggerating the crocodile encounters or inventing detail that isn't in the record. The verified version of events is compelling enough on its own. A young, financially struggling actress walked into one of the more physically demanding shoots of the 1980s, held her own next to a much bigger star, built a decades-long marriage and a Hollywood-adjacent life out of it, and then, when that chapter closed, chose to reinvent herself entirely rather than stay tied to a role she'd outgrown. Whether or not there was ever an armed guard standing between her and a crocodile-infested billabong, the more durable fact is simpler. She showed up. Some career-defining scenes are dangerous only in the way the script intends. Others carry a sliver of real risk that never quite makes it into the film's marketing. Linda Kozlowski's breakout role in Crocodile Dundee falls into the second category, a production shot in one of the wildest, most remote corners of Australia, where the crocodiles on screen weren't always the safely mechanical kind, and where the actress who became an overnight star had to learn to live, at least for a few months, inside the same wilderness her character was supposed to be terrified of. Crocodile Dundee was filmed largely in Australia's Northern Territory, including sites inside Kakadu National Park like Gunlam Falls and the East Alligator River, a crew of roughly 200 people working in genuinely remote conditions. The production used a mechanical crocodile for some of the close-up action, but the surrounding environment was a real thing, an ecosystem thick with actual saltwater crocodiles, venomous snakes, and biting insects, far from the nearest hospital. Kozlowski has spoken about this herself in interviews over the years, describing her cast quarters as sitting right at the edge of a billabong, a swampy waterhole known to hold crocodiles. She's site index equals 33-1, noted that once protected. The crocodiles in that area had grown huge, fat, and unusually bold/site, willing to come up on the land, which made even a short walk to the mess hall at night something the cast approached carefully. That detail has become one of the most repeated behind-the-scenes anecdotes connected to the film, not because the production was reckless, but because it illustrates just how little separation there was between the fictional outback danger on screen and the actual one a few yards from the actors' huts. It's worth being precise about what's documented and what isn't. The core facts, the remote shooting locations, the proximity of Kozlowski's accommodations to a crocodile habitat, and her own account of how bold the animals had become, are well established and echoed across multiple retrospectives and her own interviews. More dramatic specifics that circulate in some retellings, like an armed guard posted with a loaded weapon between her and the water, or a wave of crocodile-related deaths in the surrounding region during the shoot, aren't independently confirmed in a record and should be treated as unverified embellishments rather than established fact. What's certain is that the production was operating somewhere wildlife could not be scripted, and that alone was enough to keep everyone on edge. Before any of that, Kozlowski was nowhere close to stardom. Born in Fairfield, Connecticut in 1958, she trained at Juilliard, worked in off-Broadway theater, and built an early credit playing Miss Forsyth opposite Dustin Hoffman in a television adaptation of Death of a Salesman, a role she'd also performed on Broadway. By the mid-1980s, after moving from New York to California, she was, by Hogan's own account years later, essentially broke and unemployed, with only a couple of screen credits to her name. Hoffman's recommendation reportedly helped her land the audition for Crocodile Dundee, a modest Australian production with a budget under $10 million that Hollywood insiders viewed as a long shot at best. The film, inspired loosely by the real-life exploits of Australian bushman Rod Ansell, cast Kozlowski as Sue Charlton, a sharp New York journalist who travels to the outback and falls for Paul Hogan's title character. It became a genuine phenomenon, one of the most successful non-Hollywood films ever made, and earned Kozlowski a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Hogan later described her as a star-in-waiting for how she handled herself on that first shoot, praising her professionalism under conditions that would have unsettled far more experienced performers. The Outback shoot demanded more than acting range. Cast and crew dealt with heat, isolation, and a level of physical risk that had nothing to do with the plot. Kozlowski, by most accounts, handled it without complaint, and that composure under pressure became part of how colleagues remembered the production. It also laid the groundwork for something that outlasted the film itself, her relationship with Hogan. Their on-screen chemistry in the first film carried into Crocodile Dundee 2 years later,